So next slide. So what is health action plan? A health action plan tells you what you need to do to keep healthy. It tells you what services and support you need to live a healthy life. A health action plan is a written document that pans out the plans of giving every single person the necessary health support that they need. Next slide. So it is also a type of plan that gives out the steps to make the goal happen. In this case, every single person's health is the main goal, that each person would eventually receive health support from the government or from their communities.
Here, my name is Shekhar Arvind. The main notice of health action plan. How you can look after yourself if you have any problems with your health. Which foods are good for you? What exercise are good for you? How to be safe at home or when you go out? When you should go for your checkup for your eyes, ears, and teeth. Next slide. Next slide. Who can help me follow my health action plan? Who can get help from a family member or a friend, a staff member if you live in a residential home, a support worker, and a social worker. Next slide. Next slide. Here the types of health action plan. There are various types of health action plan. Here the list above. Mental health action plan, child and family health action plan, public health action plan, heart disease public health action plan, rural health action plan, community health action plan, and the final is animal health action plan. Next slide. Uh, Here they discuss about mental health action plan. The action plan recognizes the essential role of mental health in achieving health for all people. It is based on a life course approach, aims to achieve equality through universal health coverage and stresses the importance of prevention. Next slide. Uh, Child and Family Health Action Plan. A Child and Family Health Action Plan identifies objectives and goals of intervention, details the interventions to be undertaken, and the roles and the responsibilities of the child, young person, and family, and each of the organizations providing services to the family. The assessment and goals of intervention will be discussed and agreed with the child, young person, and their family.
Public Health Action Plan. It is a peer-reviewed open access journal that communicates and reports new journal access all relevant areas of operational research including infection control, nutrition, TB, HIV, vaccine, smoking, COVID-19, microbial resistance and diseases outbreak. Next slide. Heart Disease Health Action Plan. In this action plan, we set out a vision of minimizing preventable heart disease and of ensuring timely and equitable access to diagnosis, treatment, and care. Next slide. Next slide. Rural Health Action Plan. The Rural Health Action Plan provides a description of the current rural healthcare and human services landscape, particularly the challenges rural individual and communities face in accessing and financing healthcare and human services. Next slide.
Community Health Action Plan. A community health action plan is a written document that lists plans for achieving health improvements in the community. This is developed in response to needs and gaps identified from the data collection. Next slide. Next slide. The plan is written by the community coalition and typically includes establishing and clarifying desired outcomes, goals, objectives, activities, assignments, and deadlines for coalition members supporting the action plan. A community health action plan offers built-in deliverables and focuses on doing work in the community to support priority health needs. Next slide. Next slide. Animal Health Action Plan. Animal Health Action Plan is to protect and ensure the safety of the nation's agriculture and food supply through improved disease detection, prevention, and control. Basic and applied research approaches will be applied to solve animal health action problems of high national priority. Next slide. Next, how to write a health action plan. Start by planning. Planning out on the basic things as well as the target audience for your action plan. Write the objectives of your health action plan. Your objectives must be realistic or the action plan will not work. In addition to that, you are writing your health action plan to help others. Your objectives and your goals must be as realistic as it can get. Next slide. Next slide. Place the steps to achieving the objectives. Each objective has a step-by-step procedure. List them down as much as possible. This would be your guideline when you are planning on doing a health action plan. Add a time frame for each objective goal. Time frames are as much as important as an objective. The reason for a time frame for each goal is to know how long or short it takes for you to finish a task. Do remember to keep your time frame realistic as well. Update your action plan. Every stepping stone or every achievement you have done, update your health action plan. This is to let you know which ones are done and which ones are still about to be done. Next slide. Next slide. Health is wealth. Making a health action plan to help others in the community to get the medical assistance that they need is a good idea. But you must also be very careful, as your health and safety should also be a priority for you while you help others. Thank you.
ಎಲ್ಲ ಅರೇ
Okay. So a health action plan is part of a intervention when we go into the community. Of course, when we go there, when we go to a community and um, plan with the people, of course, we go there with uh, a certain uh, outcome that we expect. So any project, we do planning, we do proper implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. Okay? So I hope this will help you as you make your public health education videos for health action planning for any topic that you desire. Okay? Let's have the next reporter, please.
Hello, doc. This is group 36. Hello. Inaudible?
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is group 36. Next slide. Our topic is COPAR, Community Organizing Participatory Action Research. Next slide. This is a strategy by the Health Resource Development Program or HRDP3 for the implementation of primary healthcare delivery in depressed community. This is a good tool for community development and people empowerment. Next slide. What is COPAR? It is a social development approach that aims to transform the community from apathetic, individualistic, and voiceless to dynamic, participatory, and politically responsive community. The objectives of COPAR: awareness of social realities, development of local initiative, optimal use of human, technical, and material resources. Here, we need to let the people know the problem or the reality being happened in their locality in order for them to create a local initiative through the use of their own resources. It may be human, technical, or material resources, so that they have in their community. Next objective: forming structures upholding the people's basic interest has deprived sectors. As mentioned earlier, here in the COPAR, we are going to transform the poor community into a dynamic community. For this to happen, the people from this community should have the interest, the basic interest, and the leaders should influence the community and get interest of the remaining people from the community as well. Next objective: initiate responsibilities, addressing holistically the various community health and social problems. They should holistically address various community and social problems. Finally, the people needs to be aware. The people needs to have a basic interest. Once these people have a basic interest and they already know their problem, they can holistically solve their issues. Next slide. Importance of COPAR. COPAR is a good tool for community development, offer alternative solutions to health problems that may not require medical intervention, prepare people to take over management of programs in the future. Community resources are mobilized for community services. Next slide. Principles of COPAR. Do the people really have the capacity to change? Do people possess the ability to bring change? Do they have the basic interest from the poorest sectors, which lead to the development of self-reliant community? Are the people from deprived, exploited, and oppressed sectors of the community are open for the change and able to bring the change in the community? based on the interest of the poorest sectors from the community to develop a self-reliant community. COPAR process methods. There are 4 COPAR process methods: progressive cycle of action reflection, conscious raising, participatory and mass-based, group-centered, and not leader-oriented. Progressive cycle of action reflection action. This begins with small local and concrete issues identified by the people, and evaluation of the action and reflection must be done by the people. It is a cycle. The problem must be identified by them, goals should be initiated by them, action must be established by them, and evaluation must be reflected from them. This should only be done by the people from the community. Conscious raising. In this process, we make the people know how to identify the problems and set goals and take actions to solve the issue by discussing with the peoples in the community. This can be done by through conscious raising, through education, through workshop, through training activities to strengthen the people in the community in facing their issues. Participatory and mass-based. It should be participatory and mass-based. The whole people from the sector should be involved. Group-centered and not leader-oriented. Everyone in the group should work together. Next slide. Six phases of COPAR: pre-entry phase, entry phase, diagnostic phase or community or research phase, organization and capacity building phase of the community, community action phase, sustenance and strengthening phase. Next slide. Pre-entry phase. Here in this phase, we actually see whether the community or the site actually has the criteria to be part of the COPAR. This is this is done before going to the community. Community consultations or dialogues related to the site selection. Here, we are actually designing a plan for the community development, which includes all the activities and strategies for the core development, and this plan must be approved by the organization. Issue checking. Considerations related to the site selection is being considered, like socio-economic status of the community, as mentioned earlier, that the community must be deprived, exploited, and oppressed sectors from the community. Also going to check for the health services if it is inaccessible because of transportation issues or like that. Need to check if the community is poor in health status. Need to consider peace and order of the area, and facilitator should feel safety. Lastly, need to check whether the people from this community are interested and accepting the program. Site selection. Not only the community is depressed, exploited, and oppressed, in order to introduce COPA to this community, they should fulfill some criteria, like need to consider peace and order of the area, and the facilitator should feel safety. Need to check with the local government if they are okay with this COPAR introducing into them. Need to do some ocular surveys prior to the entry of the COPAR in the community. Investigation, preliminary social investigation. Preliminary, for this, we can use secondary data from various government officials like provincial health office. We can also use secondary data from other community-based health programs. We need to check whether if there is an organization already entered with same program to avoid conflict of interest. Need to conduct ocular observations noting the accessibility, geography, terrain, settlement patterns, and available resources, and also need to check if the community is having good access for health services, because if not, then COPAR can be introduced. Departmental networking. We need to have a link with local government units or LGUs or NGOs and other departments which can help in further phases of COPAR for the facilitator. Next slide. Entry phase, also known as social preparation phase. This is the most crucial phase, includes sensitization and motivating the community. Here we already entered the community and we have to check the structure of the community by ocular surveys, being with the community. Need to integrate with the community residents by doing some courtesy call with the community residents. Here we should have the checklist to gather some data which should be most deep than PSI, preliminary social investigation, by mapping and by checking their knowledge about their health condition or vaccinations and getting some information that the community needs to work on where we can help them in future in solving the issues. We can tell them the purpose why we are in the community and why we are doing the social investigation. This is information dissemination. Core group formation. Here we are developing the criteria for selection of core group members. Like, members should be the respected member of the community. They should belong to the poor sector of the society, must be responsible, must be committed, and willing to work for the social change and social transformation, and willing to learn and must be able to communicate and can express oneself in the group. Once we have the criteria and the roles and the functions are also established, these roles can be delivery of basic healthcare services, coordination, or there is a good consultation with other community organization. Self-awareness and leadership training also must be done. Next slide. Diagnostic phase or community study or research. Here in the diagnostic phase, we are identifying the problem that is to be solved by the people from that community that is affecting the whole community. Preparation. Selecting or establishing the research team, and everyone should be from the community. Training for the methods and techniques to identify the problems like cause and effect method. Planning for actual data gathering. We are going to do some surveys, maybe like qualitative, interviewing the people, or maybe like quantitative for planning for actual data gathering. Community validation. After data gathering, we are going to collect all those data that we have and we should tally. Assessment and prioritization. We know the community needs, we know the problem, we know the action for the problem, and we should give the recommendations for the actions and the problems and the procedures. Next slide. Organization and capacity building. We have core group and a research team and also identified the problem. Now we are ready to discuss these things with the community. For that, we need to have meetings with the community. Now we are going to establish the officers by election from the same community and making them socialize and train more in the process. This is establishment of officers by election. Next, we are going for induction. In this process, this is a process welcoming newly recruited officers and support them to adjust their new roles and working environments. And later, we should go for team building activities or action reflection action sessions. Functionalities. To train the people and for our organizations and committees to be functional, the group leaders and the community health officers should be trained. Here we should have a working committee that stand for our COPAR, COPAR, which who are elected to act or lead the community. Next slide. Community action phase. Workers establishment. Willingness and interest of community health workers is the development of criteria of community health workers. They should be elected. Then the training of community health workers should be done. Later, organization setup. This should be done, facilitated by the community leaders itself. The linkages, networks, and referral systems should be done by the community leaders and the community itself. They should implement a project, they should implement the procedure, they should monitor the project, and they should evaluate the project. Then to get rid of the problems. Resource mobilization scheme, initial identification and implementation. Community needs to identify the resources that they have in the community in order for them to use it to solve their problems. It may be like human, technical, or material resources. Next slide. Sustenance and strengthening phase. Formulation and ratification of constitution and by laws. Already we have formulated a constitution and it is by laws. Identification and development of secondary leaders. Already we have the secondary leaders and we should develop the secondary leaders which can help for our COPAR in future. Networks, links, and referral systems formalization. Implementation and development of viable committees, management systems, plans, medium and long-term goals. Setting up and institutionalizing financing scheme for community health programs or activities. Health workers of the communities, continuous education like community leaders, community health workers, community health officer members, community residents. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I was on mute. So that is COPAR. So this is like your health action plan. We implement research to improve the lives of the communities to improve the life of the people. And as the reporter mentioned, pre-entry is important. Pre-entry is important because you can just introduce yourself once. Once you have established your impression, first impression, then you cannot do anything about it anymore. Okay. That is planning for your entry. Being there, you establish connections. What you do? You choose your connection so that they could help you in navigating the community. And then you look at what should be done. And remember, when you do your community research, it has to be community-based and participatory. So it's not something that you will do on your own. All right? So again, you identify the problem with the community, you work with the community to find for solutions for their problem, and then you implement together. It's a more, it's a longer process, this community participatory research, because in anything, it's easier to do things individually. Okay, but of course, the process of community engagement, community development is also very low because it is more of the process than the output that we are looking for. Because if we do not empower, again, the premise of community organizing, if we do not empower the people that they could identify their own problems and provide their own solutions, then community organizing would be a failure. Then people would not be empowered and forever be dependent on an organization or the national government for things to better their lives. Okay? So we just have 2 short topics left. So I will leave you